just generally classes. Throughout the day, it's just generally classes and meals and a lot of community time as well. And assisting students wherever they need to be assisted and teachers wherever they need to be assisted too. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And congratulations on your acceptance to Harvard. Congratulations. Do you know yet what your major will be, or you're still thinking about it?
I think I have a pretty good idea of what I might major in, and I'm thinking electrical engineering, but I'm also torn because I'm starting to like psychology a lot.
Very good. Very good. So Eugene, I know you've been waiting to be asked a question, Eugene. So tell us a little bit about your USAP journey and tell us how USAP impacted your life.
All right, thank you so much. I don't even know where to start, but USAP really changed my life. It really changed my life. There wasn't much hope. I didn't really have everything figured out, but USAP really helped me to discover myself and to get prepared with my education. First of all, like most USAP students, we had financial problems at home. My father was unemployed and my mother died when I was young. So it was going to be very difficult for me to figure out my way to university. But even before we talk about getting to university, USAP really helped me to prepare for my final examinations. It really motivated me. So we passed because, you know, by then we're supposed to use our second year results in our applications. And so it really inspired and motivated us to work very hard together with the community of all the other students who were chosen around the country. We shared resources, we shared dreams, and it was a big family. Even before joining this family, reading stories of other alumni on the page, reading where they're coming from and the type of things they were achieving, I was motivated that I could do that as well. Then when we joined USAP, there are a lot of activities we did that made us reflect upon our lives and that made us think about what we really want to do with our education, how we were impacting society and why we want this education. So it was a lot of exposure. Yeah.
I'm gonna make soup later.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Eugene, one second.
Okay.
Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you're
Okay.
not speaking, please go on mute. And if you see us putting you on mute from the background, you'll know why. It's okay? Is that okay with everyone? Okay, go ahead, Eugene. And make sure, Eugene, you tell us about why you chose to come back to Zimbabwe, where you went to school and why you chose to come back. Yes.
Okay, yeah, so I was really passionate about science, and there's a big story about how I got from O level. So as we're students, by then, all of us wanted to go to the USA and we're excited about that. But then came Ashesi. We were the first engineering students at Ashesi. And, you know, I applied and I didn't complete my application because I really didn't think I was going to go there. I wanted to go to the US, but fast forward, I got accepted at Ashesi. I was the last student to get into USAP, to be selected into our group. I knew that later when I learned the selection process. Then I was also the last student to leave to be accepted on our cohort. So we were the pioneering class at Ashesi University. I was studying mechanical engineering in 2019. So the reason why I decided to come back home is because I'm very passionate about education, because almost all the achievements I have made, even getting into USAP and Ashesi, were somehow linked to education. So I've always been someone who was always teaching other people mathematics, different things. And so I decided to come back home because I wanted to start a business. I wanted to make a difference. When I came back, sometimes when I was still at Ashesi, I interned at one of Zimbabwe's leading internet providers. That was Liquid Telecom. They're big companies, they're providing great services, but I didn't see any change. They do one thing every day. So it was a bit boring, and also I didn't see any innovation. I wanted to make a difference. So I started a company where we teach electronics and robotics, and we supply robotics equipment. This is very important to me because we are making a difference. There are a lot of people who are talking about, how African engineers are not doing anything, and I wanted to change that narrative. There's so much we can do, and there's so much we are already doing, and so that's the biggest reason why I came back. I didn't consider a job because I wanted to make a difference, and I thought I could create more jobs instead of me getting into another company and becoming another employee. I could make a difference because this space is a new space, and we are leading this industry because we kind of created it. We are pioneering it, so it's a big difference. This is why I decided to come back home. Yeah, I guess
Thank
I can
you.
end there for now. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a few questions. So one of the questions I'm going to distill a little bit is about Ashesi University in Ghana. Can you give us a top line understanding about Ashesi?
Okay.
Large
Thank you.
school,
So
small
Ashesi is
school.
okay, yeah. A lot of people ask me, why did you go to Ghana? Why Ashesi? They don't understand. First of all, it's a liberal arts school in Africa. And the fact that it's home, being in Ghana, gave me a different perspective about Zimbabwe itself and about Africa, how we are more the same than we are different. Ashesi is about entrepreneurship, leadership, and ethical leadership, that is. So it's mainly about entrepreneurship and leadership, innovative thinking. So these are the main pillars of the education at Ashesi. It's a very small school which has been growing over the years, and it's training people who are becoming leaders in different sectors. Most of the people I know that studied Ashesi who are in Zimbabwe are all entrepreneurs. They are starting businesses and they are changing a lot of things back here at home. And so, yeah, Ashesi also gave me the advantage. When I applied to Ashesi, I wanted to be a computer engineer, but when I got there, I later decided to become a mechanical engineer because I could make that choice. But back here in Zimbabwe, they had already given me something fixed, and I didn't have an opportunity to change that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Eugene. Thank you. So as everyone has been talking, I've heard a few themes. So the first theme has been access. Everybody wanted access to higher education. The second theme is that you all came with motivation. You came with desire, hunger, motivation. The third one is that USAP made you ready for the next level. With Eugene, you were ready for Ashesi. And USAP continued to do that. The last one, we haven't talked about it directly, but I want us to think about this. I've heard about elements of service through what Eugene was saying. He wanted to figure out how to give back to the country. So from the student's perspective, or as an alumni, Geraldine, as a soon-to-be alumni, I guess you're an alumni already, tell us about the importance of service in the USAP community. So let's start with D. The current students. Let's start with the current students, and then I would love to hear the faculty perspective, the junior faculty and the faculty perspective. So
okay,
D or
the
Daisy?
element of
Go ahead, D.
the element of service at the school is something that they are trying to put inside us, like the way we breathe every day. It's like they are trying to make us not think of ourselves, but think of the people surrounding us. Like right now, we are in the holiday, and it's part of the learning process that we are doing as service learning. Uh, each and every student is assigned to something that you should do. It doesn't have to be that big, but anything that could be basic to society that can bring a positive impact to your society. So to think about service at USAP, it's part of the education. There's part of the mathematics, part of the physics, part of the chemistry that you are being taught at school. I think that all I can say.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you. Daisy?
Thank you. The idea of service is very important to our school. Personally, I believe that if we are ever going to change, or if we are ever going to solve the challenges that are in our communities and our societies, we have to learn how to serve. We have to take the first step of service, of giving service to our communities. So at USAP Community School, we do various things as a way to say, for example, we do projects. Last year, I was also tutoring Form 4 students. I was also helping them prepare for their examinations. And yeah, that's service. That's how it is important to our school.
So Daisy, how is it different from other schools in Zimbabwe? The concept of service.
I think that, okay, well, judging from my experience and comparing my former school to USAP Community School, we didn't have this kind of thing, like doing projects or, yeah, projects like, it wasn't that, I can't say that it wasn't important, but we didn't do it. Of course, there were other clubs like the Pawesi clubs and so forth, but it wasn't that important. So, yeah.
So it sounds like service at the other schools was optional and it was a choice, and that USAP integrates it into the curriculum. So from a faculty member perspective, Geraldine, I'd like to hear if my understanding is correct, or what do you see from a faculty perspective about service? And thank you, Daisy.
I think you're correct, right? And it's not just the curriculum, it's also in the everyday activities of how we run the school. So there are two maybe areas that I can maybe zoom in on. So we have a work program. So every student at the school has a job, and that job, they range from taking care of our school puppy, the water station, cleaning of classrooms, like all these small activities that make a school run efficiently. And every single student has a job that they have to do. We also have a school garden, and it's the responsibility of the student to make sure that we have healthy, delicious food on our tables. So I think what that does is that it shows the range when it comes to service. I think most of the time in a lot of schools, service is the one thing that you do maybe one day in a year to tick off a box. But for us, it's really embedded in how we think of how our students are going to maybe impact their communities in a few years. Another, I think this is actually like one of my favorite aspects of the USAP community. We all wash our own dishes. And that might seem like, something very small, but in a culture like ours that is very gendered, where only women wash dishes, to have a school where every single faculty member, James, the head of the school, washes his own dishes. I feel like that it communicates something to our students about what it means to take care of those people around you. And then when it comes to then the curriculum, what we then do in the classroom. So I teach research methods, and that's the class where we house the sort of service learning project. What we then do is that we match the activities and the expectations that we have for them with theory. So one of the approaches to service that we use is using the concept of servant leadership, which is something that's also very much rooted in the Quaker philosophies that help how the school is run.
So Geraldine, I'm curious about two things. One is remote learning. How has the culture changed? So what I'm thinking about is when you're on campus, there was a lot of formal culture elements to the point where washing dishes became part of the formal culture. And then there are a lot of informal culture elements that thrive in an on-campus setting. How have you tried to create community in the remote learning, or how has it affected the relationships with the faculty and the students during the lockdown?
So lockdown has been difficult.
Okay.
It's always hard to translate what you do in a physical space to the online space. But I think it has also created an opportunity for them to do their service learning projects for longer.
Okay.
Which is actually an added advantage for their own growth, because they get to then review and make improvements. In terms of the culture, there are some things that stay within, even within the online space. So we have an advisory program where students are paired with a faculty member, and you're sort of like a parent, and I put that in quotation marks because there's no way teachers could ever replace a student's parent, but we're sort of the people that students can still refer back to. And so these advisor families become these clusters of community where people can send each other updates. They can send each other what they're doing. And in all of these things, I think our hope is that the things that we do on campus in the physical space, they get to do in their own families and in their own communities. I think we can measure success in terms of how our students being able to translate the responsibility they have on campus to how they then go back to their communities and ask those difficult questions about gender, about class, and then push for some small changes there.
Thank you, Geraldine. Thank you. And Rebecca has put in the chat some examples of service learning projects from last year. I encourage you to look at that. Langa, as a teaching assistant and junior faculty, I have two questions for you. So one is, how have your USAP, your experiences at USAP prepared you for your future plans? And when you're thinking about your future plans, if you can think 10 years out, what would you say you would like to be doing? I know that feels like a long time, but it's not a long time at all.
Okay, thank you for that question. Generally, working here at USAP and being someone relatively young in a school amongst the faculty, it's so great that we're encouraged to speak and voice our opinions. And that's not very usual in most settings where you're the younger person. And because of that, I feel like before I'd come to USAP, I may have not been able to voice my opinions as much as I am now. And knowing that we've got faculty and a great community that takes your opinion seriously is something that just helps you to understand that people do actually care about what you have to say. And that's probably the biggest thing that I feel like will help me with my future. And then 10 years from now, something that I've actually drawn from the service thing, because usually when people go out, they'll be like, I want to leave and then I want to work outside the country and that's it. But something that was really reinforced within me here at USAP is coming back. And 10 years from now, I see myself in Zimbabwe being an electrical engineer. Actually, what I want to do is to have an electronics company that does everything in Africa and is owned by Africans, and generally manufacturing and distribution is in Africa. And that's something that USAP has reinforced, that whenever you're able to access other things that people can't access, then you need to be able to turn back and look at your roots and see, okay, this is a problem and this is a problem that I need to fix.
Thank you, Langa. Eugene, tell us, you've started a business, you are employing people, you're an entrepreneur. What do you think you'd like to be doing in 10 years?
Okay, thank you so much. Actually, currently, according to my plans, in exactly 10 years, like you asked, I actually want to retire. I'll be 35 there. I'll be 35. Maybe I'm planning to retire early. But yeah, that's what I'm currently planning. I'm thinking by then I'll be starting a foundation, or whenever that is, if I retire in 10 or 15 years, I will be starting a foundation which will be supporting STEM education. I think, like I said, okay, anyway, just to summarize about me, I realized my name has 3 E's. Eugene has 3 E's. The first one is entrepreneurship. The second one is education, and the third one is engineering. So science is very important to me, and so is education and entrepreneurship. So I am very passionate about education, and I want to make an impact in education. I'm already doing that through my companies. We teach electronics and robotics, and we do that teaching students how to connect electronics components and all these things with business in mind. So they have to be thinking about solving a problem, and they have to be thinking about monetizing that. So these 3 things are important to me. And so, yeah, in 10 years, I should be running a foundation, which is based on education, promoting STEM education, probably scholarships for students, or maybe a school. I don't know what exactly it's going to be, but it's going to be centered around education. Yeah.
Thank you, Eugene. Does anyone else want to talk about the 10-year plan? If not, I want to switch the conversation a little bit to Rebecca and James. I have a question for Rebecca and James. Anyone else want to talk about their 10-year plan? Dee, do you want to talk about your 10-year plan?
Yeah, it's not a problem. The 10-year plan for me is like, even when I was applying to USAP, that question was actually in my application form, and like, what do you see yourself doing in 10 years to come? And every day at school, as we'll be doing some other studies like college counseling, my man will be asking you like, what do you see yourself doing in 10 years to come? So that has been inside me, and I actually know the answer. In 10 years to come, as I'm learning to be a physicist, maybe a university professor, and I'm seeing myself in 10 years, probably 10 years, there are some 5 or 6 years in front here of learning. Then the 4 years that will be remaining, I'll be in Zimbabwe, maybe at UZ, maybe the University of Zimbabwe, at teaching physics to Zimbabweans, to everyone who can access education to Zimbabwe. And that will be quality physics to Zimbabweans. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. So Daisy and Geraldine. Daisy, what's your 10-year plan?
Thank you for that question. Actually, I'm still thinking about it now, because being at USAP provided me with this wide range of possibilities. Today, I might say I want to do this, tomorrow I want to do this, but currently, I'm interested about this issue of drug abuse among the youth. It's something that I have experienced and lived with. Yeah, I've seen drug and alcohol abuse destroying a lot of lives. So it's something that it's something that I would like to research more and probably provide a solution for that. Yeah, that's my 10-year plan.
Thank you, Daisy. Thank you, Daisy. And Geraldine, what are you thinking about for your 10-year plan?
So for me, the dream has always been to write stories for children and young adults.
Mm,
So hopefully in about 10 years, I'll be able to actually afford to do that.
very good, very good. So I want to switch it a little bit to Rebecca and James. So we understand that Zimbabwe is in its third wave of COVID. And what I understand, at least on from the US perspective, is that independently driven schools have been very adept at being flexible, nimble, working with their students. And from what I've seen, you've had to adapt a lot of those qualities to make it through this amazing first year into your second year. So I'm curious to hear from your perspective how COVID is affecting the school and what you see, some of the highlights that COVID has brought out. So I know there are some service projects that have affected, that are speaking directly to COVID as a highlight, in terms of learning and learning how to be nimble and to move forward. But I'm also curious to see what the learnings from COVID have brought forward in terms of the best way to keep navigating and helping the students adjust. So Rebecca or James, I hope that makes sense. James, do you want to speak from head of school perspective?
Yeah, sure, I'll go first. Thanks, Lois, and thanks to all the panelists. So you're right, this is the third lockdown. I'd also say, just based on the cases, the numbers, the variants that are spreading, it does seem like the most severe, and it seems like it's sort of on the upslope as well. So fortunately it won't, or hopefully it won't get too bad, but we'll see. Yeah, I think we've had to be extremely, adaptive, resilient. We're not in a situation where, we can just move to online Zoom lessons and all be seeing each other, over the video camera in the way that we are right now. We've had to use WhatsApp learning. We've had to be pretty creative about how we deliver content, and not only how we deliver content, since that's, not the, there are many other parts to our education other than just pure content, but how we preserve some of our school community and try to have some of the discussions that we, could have had before in class. So a huge shout out to our teachers for being the ones to execute that, and for the work that they've done in being creative in terms of like how we continue to, to feel some semblance of community as a school, despite all of this. And yeah, I think some of the things that it's brought out, I mean, you never want to say this really, like I think it's shown resilience, quite a bit of resilience in our community. Obviously there's a sad side to that as well, because it comes in the face of adversity. But we've had students and their families who have gone through quite a bit, and the fact that they are still on track with their learning, and took their AS exams this past May, have continued with their work, are on target to take their A-level exams in October and November and apply to university. It's pretty amazing considering that our first class that started in January 2020, by the time they graduate now, they'll have spent over half of their time at the school, not actually at the school, but learning online. So the fact that they're still on track is really a testament to them, their resilience, their toughness, and to the kind of ingenuity and grit of our teachers.
Thank you. I also think it's a testament to the behaviors that you've modeled as a staff in terms of your curriculum, in terms of thinking about what does access look like, how do you maintain motivation through the COVID world. You are continuing on the mission of readiness, making sure that students are ready. And then the piece that binds it together is the service piece, always reflecting back to service. So Rebecca, tell me a little bit about, I think there are two projects in particular that have come out and speak to the resilience that James is talking about that came out through COVID in terms of service learning projects, and then a little bit about your vision forward.
Okay, and thank you. I'm not sure if I'm going to hit the projects you're thinking of, but before I speak, I just wanted to give a shout out that we have 3 of our board members beyond Lois who are on this call with us. So maybe they can wave their hands. We have Bruce Wharton, Ann Kuhlman, and Ru Nyambuya. And thank you for joining us today. There we go. Okay, so you can see the 3 other board members who are with us today, right? In addition to Lois. So I just wanted to echo what James has said, that when the world thinks of online, I laugh when we say it's time for online learning, because we even banter and call it online learning, but none of our students are online. Nobody has Wi-Fi, nobody has a computer with them. So the fact that we've been able to put together a system through WhatsApp, and teachers at night uploading videos that they've condensed so that they'll be small enough for the data that we're sending students for them to view them on WhatsApp. It always amazes people when I explain the extent to which our students go to be able to access this education that we're trying to deliver for them, to be able to do math, physics, biochem, reasoning, humanities, and everything through their phone and WhatsApp. And we have students, we have somebody I know on this call who's from the Naledi Foundation. We were able to get a grant to buy some solar panels and batteries, and we sent our rural students home with solar panels this time so that they could charge their phones and be able to be there in class. We have a student who walks once a week or twice a week, 3.5 hours each way to get to the closest town so that he can download all the videos, and then he goes back, because he can't do any more than just message with the connectivity where he lives. So when I think about all the extremes to which our students have gone just to access the education, it's incredibly inspirational to us. As James said, it's not just the teaching, it's keeping the community there. And I think we're having to do a lot more checking up on students to make sure they're okay. There's been all the social issues that our students deal with anyway in their homes have been exacerbated because of COVID. Everything from evictions and people losing jobs and domestic violence, and all of that has just come to the fore with lockdowns. So I think our teachers have also done an amazing job of looking out for students, seeing who's not in WhatsApp class. We take attendance and then quickly coming together in our faculty group to say, so-and-so's missing, have you heard from them? Have you heard from them? And people calling and making sure all of them are okay out there. So that's what I wanted to say about COVID. We hope that it's not going to keep going like this, but we don't have any positive indication that we're going back to school anytime immediately soon, because our cases are on the rise. And I think it's very different than the situation in the US where everything's opening up and we're now getting hit hardest that we've ever been hit before. We also have vaccinated, all of our faculty and staff are vaccinated, and we've highly encouraged our students, and they're starting to be able to access vaccines. So we're seeing every day people sending in their vaccine selfies to say, I got vaccinated in different parts of the country. And our real prayer is that we can get the whole school vaccinated. In terms of a vision, or in terms of the projects you mentioned, I think I'll just mention one, which is that in our service learning projects last year, one of our students decided to start a COVID information group on WhatsApp, and it just spread and grew. And it's now a group that there's 4 different groups. We have 1,000 people on these groups in Zimbabwe, and he was able to tap into USAP alumni who are public health professionals with MPHs and doctors, etc. And we have a group of professionals that every single day we post statistics for Zimbabwe, and then 4 times a week we post sort of long, extensive posts based on different issues that people want to learn about here, everything about treatment, about prevention, about vaccinations, and everything. So that group has been going on since last year, April, and it was all started by 2 students at our school. So I think that was one of the highlights. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you, Rebecca. There's another question. If everyone is vaccinated, can you go back to in-person learning? I know, I'm not sure that they are giving waivers. I don't think so in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I
Brief
think-
answer to that is no.
Yeah.
It's up to the
Okay, that's what
ministry.
I
It's
thought.
not going to
There are no
make an
waivers.
exception. Yeah.
Correct. No waivers for everyone in a group, in a bubble being vaccinated to go back to in-person. No.
No.
Okay. Okay. We have about 10 more minutes. I'm going to encourage people to put questions in the chat. Continue to put questions in the chat. And while you're doing that, I want to ask a few more questions of the students in particular. So I want to go back to the pivotal moment. I want us to kind of use these last 10 minutes to think about the access. Education Matters and USAP provides access to college students. So when you think about the barriers to access that you encountered, let us know if you're comfortable sharing some of the barriers that were before you. And a few of you mentioned the financial barrier earlier, but were there other barriers that we might not be considering since we're from all over the world? So, you know, when you were filling out your USAP application and figuring out how to go, you know, how to make your next step happen, are there any barriers that people from other parts of the world who are on this call might not be considering? Might not have considered? So Rebecca mentioned one. We have a student who walks several miles to get access to the internet so that they can do their work. Are there other barriers that we're not considering or didn't consider at the time you were filling out your USAP applications? Langa, are there any barriers that we didn't consider that when you were sitting down saying, what am I going to do in 10 years? Are there barriers that other people in the world would not have understood that you were going through?
Yeah, definitely. And one of the biggest is exposure. So there is this thing that USAP does where they bring in other people to talk about the different things you're doing in their life and etc.
Convocation, is that called convocation?
Exactly, convocation.
Okay.
And I don't think I've ever had exposure to such talks before. And I don't think other people really understand the fact that I would have never known that you could make a living from research or that you could actually help people from just research. And yeah.
Very good. Very good. Geraldine, do I see your hand? I'm trying to look at everybody's face.
Yeah, I think it's, I just wanted to add something about access. I think one thing that we often don't think about in the African context is that a lot of times when you think about education, we're talking about basic education. Or a lot of the projects and NGOs out there are thinking about how do we get the most basic education to people. And I think what drew me to join USAP was that wasn't the aim. The aim was quality, affordable education to a wide range of people who would not get that. And so we're not just thinking about teaching kids how to read and write. We're focusing on the types of skills that will make them competitive change makers. So in my classes, I'm pushing them. They sometimes get really frustrated because there's never an answer. And I'm pushing them and preparing them for a world where there are no easy answers, where you actually have to think every aspect of what you believe. And I think that is important to talk about because a lot of the students on the African continent deserve that type of education. They might not get it, but it should be that their right to get.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Geraldine. Anyone else want to speak in terms of access? What are the things that people on this call from around the world would not have understood as you were writing your application and talking about your 10-year plans?
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
Yeah, also access to a good college counselor. That's a very big thing that USAP provides, because at any other school in Zimbabwe, you finish and you're on your own, and generally everything you're on your own. But with USAP, there's a lot of people behind you and with you.
Thank you, Langa. Thank you. So we have about 4 minutes left, and I want to understand from James and Rebecca what the process is for bringing in the next class of January 2022, if that is started, and what does that process look like to provide a new group of students access? Is that
Sure.
James?
So it hasn't started quite yet. We usually will start sort of end of July, early August. I think that was what we did last year, but we'll put out an application. We'll try to, speaking of access, we'll try to make it available in as many different formats as possible. So that could include filling it out online. It could include filling it out on paper, picking up a paper application from different areas around the country, filling it out on paper, taking some photos of it with a smartphone and WhatsApping it back to us. Or it can include handing it in person to different locations around the country. So we try to make that as accessible as possible. This past year, we had just over 600 applications. And I think we'll probably get a similar number this year. And we'll take about 45 students. But we'll do an initial read through and screen of the applications, and those are actually read by alums. And then they'll select about 100 or so finalists, 110 finalists, who we will interview hopefully in person, but that'll depend a little bit on the travel situation, COVID, et cetera. But obviously, there's no substitute really for in-person interviews. So hopefully we'll be able to interview in person, otherwise by phone. And then we will make our decisions, based on sort of a sum of all of those components. And that'll hopefully happen. I think we'll have the class finalized sometime in November, and invite them to become part of the school at that point.
Thank you, James. Rebecca?
I just wanted to add to that we have students from all 10 provinces in Zimbabwe. And so I think James makes it sound very easy. The interview process is a logistical nightmare because we're trying to interview 100, 110 kids from all over the country, and we go to them. So we find sort of what's the closest place we can meet you. As Dee mentioned, he is from Tongogara, the refugee camp, and that's about 9 hours from Harare. So for example, that's one place where we go to interview students from the camp, and we have to get all kinds of permissions from UNHCR just to visit. We go to all the main cities, Bulawayo, Gweru, etc. But this year, because of COVID, this last year when we were getting in our class, we did about half in person and about half we had to do by phone, and it was really challenging. We had some kids who were, I think one famous interview that James and I won't forget was a student who finally told us, I can't hear you, but we could hear her. So we told her, we texted and told her just to talk. And she just went on and on for about a half an hour. We were just sitting there with one question, but we couldn't give her another question. So she just talked for a half an hour. We finally just cut the phone and then sent her a text saying, that was great, thanks. She is at our school. But she just had to keep talking with faith that she was just telling her story. But yeah, it is very important to us to know where students are from and to go to them and see the reality of where they're from before we select them. And to make sure we're true to our mission, that we're giving education to students who otherwise wouldn't have it.
Thank you, thank you. So to wrap up, I want us to think about a few things. I'm going to suggest that we think about how we can support USAP in terms of our time. One of the things James noted is that in the cycle of USAP, alumni students review the final applications. So from the point they become alumni, they circle back with the service mentality and start thinking about how to assist the other students. So time, in terms of time, you can engage in the USAP alumni network. You can follow, share USAP on Facebook. and social media. And please remember that engagement starts with knowing as much as you can about USAP, and feel free to contact us, contact those of us on the board, contact everyone at the school to learn as much as you can. The second is, we really want you to think how you can give of your talent. One of the students mentioned that there's convocation. If you think you have an idea or a message in terms of access to the things you know, consider sending an email to say, I have an idea for a convocation speaker. If not, you directly think about your concentric circles. Who do you know that can plant a seed among our students? The third is always to think about treasure, time, talent, and treasure. So we want you to go on social media, follow us, and begin to prepare for the USAP Run, Walk, Cycle event on September 19 and 20. Get as many people as you can to sponsor you and to learn more about USAP along the way. Information will be coming out about that on Facebook, on all of our social media. So you can think about it that way. So thank you for taking time. Oh, it's 20 miles, 20 minutes. 20 miles or 20 minutes, is that a question? I'm sorry. Rebecca, can you explain a little more about you're on mute, Rebecca, I'm sorry.
Sorry, you can give us, just trying to give you the options. You can run, you can walk, you can cycle, you can do yoga, you can juggle, but it's for 20Ks, for 20 miles, for 20 minutes, whatever you want to do to support us and to get your networks to contribute to you during that time. It's our second time doing it this year. And the launch for it will be next week, actually online. But then you'll see lots and lots of material, and I'm sure we'll be sending you emails if you want to join us.
Yes, thank you. So thank you for taking your time on a Saturday from the US, Dubai, all over Zimbabwe. Please say hello, send your email, talk to us on social media. And we're so grateful for the students, the faculty, the junior faculty, and for the commitment, the service learning commitment that you bring to the USAP school. Thank you all so much.
Thanks for the invitation, and congratulations, everybody. Thank you. This is important work. I am so proud of this program. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Rebecca, I love you, Rebecca.
Thank you, and that's Dr. Rochon, the president of University of Southern Indiana, who has a bunch of our students. So we're very appreciative of you joining us, Dr. Rochon.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.